I am going to share my story with you, and I'm praying that it goes well because I actually don't do a lot of public speaking. But I just wanted to begin by saying that Jesus changed my life. Amen. From top to bottom, in and out, all around, and upside down. And I'm super thankful for that. And if you would have told me 2 years ago that I would be praying every day and coming to church every week and being involved in church functions and really, really having a desire for outreach, I would have probably laughed at you and blown smoke in your face. And that's how far God has taken me. I really think that Jesus came and got me for some reason. I think that he would come and get all of you too. And anyway. Now, yeah, there's a verse in Ephesians, sorry, that was what I was getting at, that says, just as he chose us in him, and that means not just me, before the foundation of the world, that we would be holy and blameless before him in love, he decided in advance to adopt us into his family. So, anyway, I was born here in the Walla Walla Valley. I went to Rogers and Wava. I was raised Adventist. I had a pretty normal childhood, and my family was pretty normal. My parents really wanted the best for me and took really good care of me, and obviously giving me a Christian education and anything they could. So most of the issues that happened for me was a perception of feeling unloved because of the way that my mom and I bonded or didn't bond as a young baby and then a child. It kind of grew into this feeling that I wasn't loved. My dad was really distant, and he had a bunch of hobbies and kind of just stayed away and did his own thing. And my mom tried to involve him in a lot of our family functions, but he just wasn't really involved. And then some other things happened as I got older that made him really an unsafe source of love for me, so I really didn't seek that out either. And so my mom admittedly told me I was a really colicky baby and I was really, really independent, and so I would go around doing things without her all the time. I didn't really need her. So let's say I potty trained myself when I was 15 months, I think my dad said. And I just took off my diaper one day and I said, that's it, I'm not gonna go. And I didn't wet the bed or anything. I just said, that's it. Then I taught myself how to ride a bike when I was 1. It was really, my dad likes to say that it was really cute because I had a little tiny bike, and I was just this fat little toddler riding around in the front yard with no training wheels, and I just was always, I'm gonna go get it, I'm gonna do it, and nobody was gonna stop me. So I really didn't need my mom, and that was really hard for my mom because that's what she wanted. She wanted a baby who would need her and love her and be snuggly and always want to be, loving on her, and and that wasn't me. So combined with colic and other things, my mom told me as we had issues in my teen years that was a big issue for us, is that we just didn't bond well as mother and daughter when I was born. Anyway, my brother came along when I was 3, and he was very much what my mom needed. And so he was always, whiny and wanted her and always hung on her leg. And so that she really loved that. And, and that's fine. I really, really want to hit home that now that I'm older and I can see the bigger picture, my mom and I have a much better relationship, and I don't hold any grudges against her. Just at that time, it kind of stemmed where I'm at. Anyway, hold on. Anyway, the point is that I didn't feel loved, and so I kind of just started seeking out love in other places, which is, I think, what most people do. So now we're at high school, right? So I'm in high school, and I was really chubby as a preteen, and I wasn't really, liked by the guys. So there wasn't a lot of love for me there. By my sophomore year, though, I started thinning out and looking kind of decent, and so boys started paying attention to me, which, as Elaine knows, was a problem. Anyway, I met a boy who was my first boyfriend, and we kissed, and I was so excited. And he was really not the best guy, and I didn't care because he liked me. So anyway, he ended up raping me, and that was really kind of a turning point for me because I just really didn't care. Like, I had already felt really unloved before that, and a lot of things had happened at home that were rocky, and it just, at that point, I just said, who cares? And I also convinced myself it wasn't a big deal. I didn't tell anybody about my friends, and I was just like, whatever, it happens all the time. You hear it on the news, everybody gets raped, right? So I just moved on and really became my motto, nothing really matters. Kind of like Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, you know. Anyway, let's see here. Anyway, I started seeking out parties a lot then. I got caught drinking that summer, and my parents were really worried and shipped me off to Upper Columbia Academy, which was the Adventist boarding school, and they were trying to do anything they could to rein me back in and fix me up, but it was unsuccessful, and I craved all the friends that really held my self-esteem together. So I begged to go home, and they let me go about halfway through the year. But I went back, and things were kind of different then too. It just wasn't the same. I felt so uneasy in everything, and I kept getting in little bits of trouble here and there. And anyway, by my senior year, I had begged my parents to let me go to the community college Running Start program. And eventually they agreed because I was going to be 18 that year anyway, and obviously with all of my issues, I went on and on about how being 18 made me, you know, able to do it myself. So I didn't want to go to the Adventist school anymore, and I just ended up taking that route. So the year I turned 18 was a big year. I went to the Running Start program, and all my friends that I had known were going to WAVA still, and I was trying to make new friends, and I had a boyfriend actually then that was really sweet to me, but he was kind of clingy, and I didn't really want that. I really felt at that point that I couldn't even feel love without it being distorted. So I broke up with him, and I met my daughter's dad at a party, and he was really hooked up in the party life. He knew everybody that partied. Every time we went to a house, everybody's like, hey, you're so-and-so, how's it going? Oh, hey, blah, blah, blah. And he was so popular. And he wanted me, so I felt popular because, you know, put the two together. Anyway, so that was really what kept us together. I was really interested in partying more than I was interested in him. So it just kind of fueled that drive and kept me on that path. But anyway, I was still living at home at that point, and my parents actually kicked me out because I was never coming home. And I started living at his house with him and his mom. And my party life really got pretty intense then. So I started smoking cigarettes, and that's really when I started smoking weed, and then he started doing cocaine. And at first I was like, oh, why would you ever do that? Like, that's the scariest drug. You know, you hear it on TV. People die from cocaine all the time. Don't do cocaine. And he's like, you're so stupid. You know, don't do that. That's so dumb. Ugh, just try it one time. So I tried it, and then we did it a lot, and you know, it just keeps going like that. So there's a lot of parties that were going on, and a lot of drug use, and meanwhile we were, you know, drinking all the time. And anyway, 6 months later I ended up getting pregnant, and he was really abusive, and I wasn't allowed to talk to my friends on the phone. I wasn't allowed to talk to my mom. I wasn't allowed to wear skirts. I wasn't allowed to wear tank tops. I wasn't allowed to go to the store. I wasn't allowed to pretty much do anything without his approval and him with me. I had to go everywhere with him because I was his property, and he wanted to keep me, and all sorts of weird stuff. And anyway, so yeah, 6 months later I was pregnant, and my mom kept trying to come and get me and figure out how to fix it, but I didn't want it because I didn't think she loved me, really. Which now makes no sense, because if your mom keeps coming to try and get you, obviously she loves you. Maybe it wasn't in a way I could have perceived it, but she did. Anyway, so there's a verse in Psalms that says, "Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them." So no matter the circumstances of when my daughter was born and how that happened, I know she was a huge blessing from God. And I just wanted to mention how thankful I was for that. So when I was pregnant, I quit smoking, and I quit drinking. I quit doing everything. I thought I was really going to be normal at that point. I moved back to my mom's, and we did it all together. My mom said, "Look, we'll just do it, and it'll be great. It'll be fine." So I lived at her house, and we went to all the doctor's appointments, and I got really, really, really fat, and it was exciting. I mean, you're having your first baby. Anyway, so I had her, and there were a lot of issues still, obviously, but it kind of it normaled out for a while. But her dad really became really possessive at that point. I know he was before that, but at that point it got even worse, because now it wasn't just that I was his property. He had a child with me who was really his child, you know. And so he had tried to steal her a couple of times, and just some weird stuff went on. But I kept falling for that because I was really susceptible to that kind of charm where, I don't know, he kept being like, "I love you, we'll be a family. Don't worry, I'm sorry, I'll change, it'll be different." And I really fell for that. I really thought, okay, well, maybe this time. Anyway, he kept going to jail and prison and in and out of that. But while he was in jail and prison, and my daughter was probably about 1, we had our own apartment, and it was really a time that was bad for me and for Taylor, I would say, because I didn't really have anybody to tell me what to do anymore. I was on my own. I mean, I had my own place, and now I could really party, right? So I started partying again and started smoking, and I had nothing else to live for, right? I mean, nothing really mattered. That's the motto. So I just started doing a lot of coke again, and drinking, and, you know, boys and whatever, and you know, thankfully God took care of Taylor while I was out of my mind, for those few years. So this is a couple of years of that. So when I was 21, we were doing coke at my neighbor's house, and I saw a guy, really tall guy. We were smoking coke, and I'm sorry if that's explicit. So he smoked it, and he stood up straight as a board, and he fell flat on his back. And I looked, and I'm like, we're all looking at each other like, what? Is he gonna wake up? Anyway, so we're all just standing there, and we start hiding the drugs, like, okay, well, are we gonna call the cops? What are we gonna do? And so everybody's freaking out, right? But nothing's happening. Nobody's calling anybody. Nobody wants to get in trouble. I mean, if we call the cops, you're gonna come and see we have drugs. Why is the guy passed out? Because we did drugs? Anyway, so I'm standing there, and I'm panicking, thinking, why am I not calling the cops? Why isn't anybody calling the cops? This is insane. Anyway, he was out for a long time, and it really scared me and woke me up, because I thought, you know, how unimportant life is in that kind of life. And anyway, he woke up and it was fine, but it made me reflect on myself. Like, how could I watch this and not do anything? And as years later, when I had other things with drugs, a lot of stuff like that happened. And in that life, life is really unimportant. Anyway, it set me on a straight and narrow path again. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start reading the Bible and praying. And I did for about a month. I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit partying, I quit everything. And for a month I was just absorbed in the Bible and studying. And I had a neighbor at that time, and she was coming over, come on, come smoke with me. Why are you so different? Da, da, da. And I was like, no, I don't want to. I'm hooking up with God. Anyway, about a month into that, I was up really late studying Daniel and Revelation, which probably wasn't the best place to start when you're trying to to get back with God. So it was more about anxiety and less about Jesus, right? So I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to happen. Anyway, so I think that's actually why this story ends up the way it is. But anyway, I got choked by a demon that night. This is a true story. So I was in my living room, and I started feeling this really icky feeling, and I'm praying and reading my Bible, and I'm thinking, what on earth is this? It was so intense and creepy. And so I thought, okay, you know what? It's not going away. I'm just going to go upstairs and I'm going to go to bed. And I went upstairs and I laid down, and I still felt the presence, and all of a sudden I'm being choked by something invisible, and I couldn't speak, but all I could get out was Jesus. And as soon as I said that, the thing flew through the window, and my curtains went whoosh, because they were these plastic curtains that hung down, and my window was closed, and I kept thinking, I laid there like, what on earth was that, right? And I mean, at the time, I thought, number one, I was crazy, and number two, what could I do to ever prevent this in the future? Because if you're laying in your house and nobody's in there, but something comes and chokes you, not a lot of place to hide from that, right? So I went to the church, and I told the pastors, I said, this happened, what on earth happened? And they brought some people to my house to pray, and told me that this or this, maybe inviting it to stay or something. And at least that helped me know I wasn't crazy, but it really scared me so bad that I was mad at God that he didn't save me, right? Why would you let this happen to me? Why would you allow this? Da, 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 da. I'm trying to come to you, and this is how you repay me? Right, that's how I felt, which is ridiculous, because really, at the end of the day, he did save me. All I had to say was Jesus, and just like that. And it wasn't just kind of like it happened in a couple of minutes or a couple of hours. He immediately, the moment those 5 letters passed from my lips, the thing left the building. And that's how powerful God is. It also reminds me of that story in Matthew, that when the disciples were caught in the storm and they thought they were going to die, and Jesus was asleep, and they felt like he didn't care. But he loved them very deeply, and the moment that they cried out, he answered and calmed the storm. And I feel like that's really applicable to what happened there. But anyway, because of the way I perceived that, I turned from God again, running in the other direction. If he couldn't save me from that, which obviously he did, then what was the point, right? Anyway, so the next 5 years after that were pretty much a whirlwind of bars and parties, and I finally found a steady boyfriend who I was madly in love with. He took me on all these trips, and he had a good job, and he had enough money that he could travel us all over the country, basically. We went up and down the West Coast, and we went on a Caribbean cruise. We went, Sandpoint, and just all these little places, and he was always looking for stuff to do that was really exciting. He'd always be like, oh, there's this crazy thing 4 hours from here, let's go there this weekend. Oh, great, let's go. And we felt really cultured because we were, smoking our cigarettes and drinking our wine and going to dive bars, and we're so cool. Anyway, so we weren't doing drugs, thankfully, but we were definitely drinking and thinking, we had it made or something. Anyway, I found out about a year later that the couple of times he went to Spokane for the weekend, he was going to see his other girlfriend. So that was really hard for me. It was really rough. Because I thought, he made so much effort to make me fall in love with him. And he would tell me that all the time, oh, well, I just want you to fall in love with me. We're in love. We're going to get married, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, everything changed from that point. So he moved back to Spokane, and I ended up moving with him to win him back because I could not bear the thought that I was unloved, or that, I don't know, I didn't want to break up with him because that was the only guy I've ever loved. So anyway, he moved back in with me when I moved there. We were together for about a year, and then I caught him at the girlfriend's again. Anyway, so that was really hard. And because that was so hard, and so that one really rocked me to the core, honestly. That one's really hurt me for a good long while. But anyway, that's when I started taking prescription narcotics. Anyway, so my friend at the time actually had gotten run over by a car. And I know that sounds crazy, but that happened. So she had a giant bottle of narcotics. And so I had moved home to Walla Walla, and I was really upset. All I wanted to do was lay in bed and feel sorry for myself and cry and whatever. And so she kept saying, oh, here, just take this, you'll feel better. And I did, I really, really did. It helped to just numb it all away. All of the crap and all of the garbage and everything I had done and how worthless I felt and all the drug use. And I mean, when you start doing that kind of stuff in that life, you don't feel good about yourself. You're not waking up in the morning like, I'm a good person. I love life. This is fun. You're waking up and you're saying, dude, I don't really care. So anyway, I started doing a lot of those narcotics with her, and we were really codependent on each other. She moved in with me, and we, you know, both were unmarried, and we had kids, and so to fill all that void inside, we filled it with each other and boys and bars and whatever. But it ended up being more about narcotics because they were, number one, easier to hide. Number two, you could do it all day and no one would know, right? And it really, really numbed that empty spot. So over the next maybe, I don't know, 8 years or so, things really slowed down for me in the way of partying. I kind of partied less and less, and I wasn't doing those hard drugs anymore, but I was really getting into the pills. I started going to school though. I started becoming a really functioning addict. And it all started really slow. I mean, I didn't just wake up and start gobbing myself with narcotics, but it was, I don't know, the more that I did it, the more I felt good, and I didn't want that to go away. So over time, I just became a full-blown addict, and that was my life. Anyway, I started becoming such an addict that all my money went to it, and I worked at the bar. I made a lot of tips. I went to school and I got loans, and I did various jobs, and all those jobs, I spent my money on drugs. And a lot of people didn't know that, and in fact, a lot of people still don't know that. So maybe if you talk to my mom, don't mention that. I don't want to hurt her feelings, I'm serious. Oh, I mean, I think she has a suspicion, but my daughter doesn't know, so let's not mention that either. Anyway, a lot of this my family doesn't know, so it would be sad if they did, I think. I don't want to hurt them. Anyway, I got my AA degree. I went and did some decent things, but really I wasn't. I was so miserable, and I smoked constantly, and I was super depressed. I didn't care. I was still talking to that garbage boyfriend that cheated on me all the time, right? So he had moved to Arizona even, and he just kept messaging me. He never wanted, he had some kind of void that I had, and we matched. So it just, I don't know, we fueled each other's dysfunction. So yeah, that happened for maybe the next 10 years. And I was really codependent on him, actually. I really depended on him for love and support. And I always felt in the back of my mind like he was going to be, oh, we're going to figure it out. It'll get worked out. It'll be okay. It was ridiculous. Anyway, okay, let's get to the good part. Ready? All right. So Jesus changed my life. On June 16 of 2016, I woke up and I peed blood. I looked in the toilet and I thought, what is that? And I went to the doctor and they didn't know what on earth was wrong with me. And I wasn't going to tell them I was taking narcotics like candy, right? I'm not going to tell them that. Nobody knew. Why would you say that? Plus, then doctors would flag me and I couldn't get any more, right? Don't say it. Anyway, so they were like, oh, I don't know. There's no pain. There's no nothing. We don't know what's wrong. Anyway, I went home and I was so miserable at this point. Really, all I did ever was watch Netflix. I went to the things I had to do because I had to do them. But like, oh, Taylor has a parent-teacher conference. I'll go to that. Sure. Oh, I have school today. I'll go to that. Sure. Oh, I guess I'll get my homework done and pretend I'm a normal human being. Sure. But anytime there was a downtime at all, I was in my room, laying down, feeling sorry for myself, watching Netflix, and I didn't care about anything. I was miserable from top to bottom. Anyway, and I was 50 pounds heavier, so imagine that. Anyway, so when I peed blood, and I'm already kind of an anxious person, I was terrified. I thought, oh my gosh, it's finally here. I'm finally ruined my body. Obviously, I know about health. You can't just keep doing what you're doing and not ruin your body. So I started praying, right? Where do you turn? If you're convinced you're gonna die, then you have to pray, right? So I just said, Dear Heavenly Father, please send your Holy Spirit to come and change me from the inside out, because I cannot do this. There's nothing, I've tried so many times to get off of those stupid pills. I tried weaning, I tried detox, I tried going and staying at a friend's house and her taking care of my kids so that I could just try and get off of them. But trying to get off of those is the same as trying to get off of heroin. Like, you really feel like you're dying. Your bones feel like they're rotting from the inside out. You have crazy muscle spasms and it really hurts. And it doesn't last for like a few days. It's like 2 weeks, at least for me, that's how it was. So I just could never get over that 5-day hump, really. Anyway, I prayed that prayer really earnestly, and 4 days later I quit smoking. 4 days later I quit drugs. And over the next year and a half, I guess it's been, Jesus has totally changed my life. He's turned me all the way around. I don't even recognize really who that person was. And it's really sad that it took that long to get there, but I'm so thankful.
Amen.
I think a couple of verses that go along with that would be, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. And in 1 John it says, now this is the confidence that we have in him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions that we have asked of him. And I didn't even know it at the time, but I had asked him, and he made it happen. I didn't even know what I was getting into, honestly. Anyway, so some of the things that God took from me took a little longer to work out, but he just kept prompting me every day to pray and to just keep seeking him. And I kind of, it was really weird. I had always believed in God, but I kind of struggled with the thought that maybe he wasn't real. But I'm only saying that because of somebody that talked to me about that not long ago, that they kept thinking, well, I want to love God, but I just don't know if he's real. And I really struggled with that too. I don't want anyone to think that that's not something that people can struggle with, and God can work that out. I just prayed and started finding proof, and there's proof everywhere when you really look at it. What else? So I started all that change started when I began reading the Gospels. I started with Matthew and Mark and Luke and John, and at first it was hard, I was kind of going through this like, okay, did he really walk on water? Who knows, But as soon as, when you're praying, you start going, there's something magical about it. And I don't want to use the word magic because it's not, but it's just so powerful. He changes you without you even realizing it. And it was funny because I had always tried so many times to change myself. Every time something happened, well, I'll just change it, I'll fix it, I'll whatever. I never could. But as soon as I go to Jesus, he did it, and it wasn't even hard. So, anyway. So yeah, the more I started praying, the more I started seeking him every day. I started seeking sermons, and I really, really loved Doug Batchelor as a kid, and I started watching all of his stuff. And every time I'd watch something, it just like, it brought something else out. Oh wow, Jesus is really like that? I can't believe that. And I get really excited, and I try to tell everybody. And, I really like Ty Gibson too. I was just telling somebody the other day. I started also listening to Christian radio. I stopped listening to all the secular stuff. And this happened gradually. It wasn't like it just magically, I woke up one day and was like, I'm a Christian now. But no, it just was gradual. Anyway, and listening to that really kind of helped me center on him all day, every day, instead of just kind of. And the only time I'd really run into trouble is if I started looking at myself, and I'd be like, I'd get discouraged because I'd be like, wow, look, I'm really doing it. I'm really a Christian now. And then all of a sudden I wasn't looking at Jesus, and that's when I'd get discouraged because I'd start getting off track. Anyway, I just wanted to say my favorite verse in the Bible is, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. That's been my favorite since I was a little kid, and I really, really, really used that during this time. And I also wanted to tell you that if Jesus can change my life, he can change yours too. I really, really am a garbage person, and anytime during this change that I've focused on myself, I'm no good. It's really, really, really crazy to think about where I was to where I am now. I'm not even remotely the same person. I don't want to do anything bad. I really, really don't. And only because I just don't want to hurt Jesus. I don't want to hurt all the things that he's done for me. I don't want to damage that because he's just too precious. So I just wanted to encourage everybody that if you feel like a garbage person, even if you don't, you can pray to God and he will change you too. And that's all.
Thank you.